Today we're going to find out what wines pair with pad thai. I'm Jason.
And I'm Trent, and we're here on an unapologetically unprofessional, unfiltered wine journey. And we're saying here, Jace.
Our saying is drink more, try more, learn more. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Before we get into the pad thai, let's talk about thoughts of the week. And I've been thinking about how much sugar do you need to make a wine sweet?
Ooh.
And you're probably familiar with this, but let me set the scene. We were fortunate enough to meet with Tom Massey, the host of the Cellar Door podcast. Go listen to his podcast, great interviews with people from all over the world. And we were deciding on a place to eat. And he said, I want to go to a place that has a bit of heat. He likes spice. And so immediately I was thinking, okay, what wines should we bring? And I thought it's got to be something sweet to kind of counteract the spice that we're going to have. Anyway, so I was looking for something off dry. Yep. Landed on a demi-sec Vouvray. Demi-sec, based on Google translation, means off dry. And I thought, okay, it'll have a bit of sweetness to it, and it should counteract any heat that we have. Anyway, we went to the restaurant, had the wine, and I could not get much sweetness at all. I think we really had to concentrate to pick it up, but I absolutely thought it'd be sweeter than that. And that's where I started thinking, all right, if that's off dry, how much sugar do you actually need to make it perceptible that it's a sweet wine? And that's what I want to share today. So there is a fantastic chart from the great people at Wine Folly, which I'll share on screen, that really highlights the differences from going from bone dry through to sweet. And it's probably worth discussing the terminology. We've discussed this before, residual sugar.
Yes.
Do you want to do a quick overview? Residual sugar, what is it to you?
For me, it's like when you go through fermentation, depends on when you stop fermentation, that's the residual sugar you have left over. I think one of the best examples is recently we spoke to Catherine Brown and talked about the Prosecco, how they stop fermentation by dropping the temperature, and therefore you have the residual sugar from the fruit.
Perfect. You know your stuff. So if you let the fermentation go, the yeast will chomp away at all of that sugar. If all of the sugar's gone, then it's basically a dry, or people say bone dry wine. And then, like you said, if you stop fermentation earlier, there's still a fair bit of sugar in there. The yeast hasn't eaten it all. There's a bit of sweetness to it. So it's that residual sugar, which is kind of the key factor around determining how sweet you're going to perceive it. And so let me share you the numbers. Don't worry about bone dry, off dry, sweet. Let's talk about residual sugar. So residual sugar in a bone dry wine is 0 to 1 grams per liter of residual sugar. So you got to think of wines like a rosé. A lot of people say rosé is a bone dry wine. Take it up a level, you get to a dry wine. That's 0 to 17 grams per liter of residual sugar. So we're thinking a dry white or a dry red. Next level up, which is what we were having, it was an off-dry white. And so off-dry wines, typically 17 to 35 grams per liter of residual sugar. So off-dry Riesling, Gewurtztraminer, those kind of wines. Two more, medium sweet. So medium sweet are like a Moscato or a Madeira.
Yeah.
And so they're about 35 to 120 grams of residual sugar. And then the last one, 120 plus grams is considered a sweet wine. So late harvest kind of wines, tawny ports are an example. So when we were having the demi-sec, which was off dry, that should be between 17 to 35 grams of residual sugar.
So sweet, but not too sweet.
So sweet, but not too sweet. But it was really, couldn't perceive it. What they say is that if it's 35 or higher, that's when you can really tell that it's a sweet wine. The demi-sec we had was around 20, so it was on the lower end of the scale. So it's something to look out for. Even though they label it as off dry, it may not be as sweet as what you wanted.
I heard that, like with those scales, right? There's no official, this is what it is, more of a guide of what it is in terms of those scales.
Yeah, it could be. That was one source that I'm for. I guess the thing that I'm trying to highlight is that it's kind of that quantity around residual sugar that you have, as opposed to the label. Yeah, that's my thought of the week. What have you been thinking about?
I'm going to build on that, but then I'm going to add on something else onto it. So I was also thinking about sweetness as well, but I'm just going to touch on for me, it's always about analogies or comparisons to make sure it kind of sinks into my brain. So
Yeah.
when I first heard dry, I didn't know really what it was.
Yeah.
And, when I think about dry, I think about moisture,
Yeah.
not about sweetness.
Yeah.
and when people go, oh, this is a dry wine, I wasn't actually too sure what it was.
Yep.
But in terms of comparison, though, when you said off dry, I go, what does that actually mean? It's actually like a Kit Kat. So Kit Kat's like 13 grams of residual sugar.
Yeah.
Or sugar in it. For sweet, Coke.
Yeah,
So
super.
Coke's 106 grams per litre. Gatorade's 57 grams a litre. Sprite is 85 grams per litre. So when you think about sweet wine, is it to that Coke level of sweetness?
Yeah.
And for very sweet, think milkshakes, 240 grams per litre. And also Skittles, 760 grams a litre.
Wow.
So next time think about how much sugar you're eating when having those Skittles.
Skittles, yeah.
So again, with off dry, think about it as a Kit Kat. Actually had also like a tea with a teaspoon of sugar.
Yeah.
With a sweet, think Coke, Sprite, or Gatorade. Think for very sweet, think Skittles or milkshake.
Good examples, things that you can relate to.
That's a build. But then the other thing for me was about the confusion between fruitiness and sweetness.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And the reason why I kind of want to think about that or talk about that one is, again, we had a chat with Raquel Jones from Weathercraft, and we had an Albarino there.
Yeah.
And they go, hey, this tastes a bit sweet. And then he goes, no, actually no sweetness in it. Maybe it's the fruitiness. And they go, okay, I'm always getting confused between fruitiness and sweetness.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that when I think about fruit, I think about, for those ones, it could be peaches or plums or strawberries that are associated with being sweet.
Yeah.
But it's more fruitiness rather than sweetness.
Yeah.
So the test that they say that to kind of remind you of what it is think about for Sauterne or port, that's more on the sweet side. Yeah. For Chardonnay, it's more on the fruity side. And then the other comparison is Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah.
Very fruit-driven, passion fruit, pineapples, tropical.
Yeah.
But there's no sugar in it.
Yeah.
So that's more fruit-driven rather than sweet.
Yeah.
So just a little reminder, fruit versus sweet.
Yeah.
My thought of the week.
Personally, I think people can get a bit too hung up on fruit versus sweet. I mean, it's kind of a sensation, a flavor profile that you get. I don't care if it's fruity or sweetie. You're just kind of describing what you're tasting. But there is a distinct difference in the wine world is what they talk about. Yep.
I know. Still learning.
Yep.
Today's episode.
So today's episode is all about the famous pad thai. And do you like pad thai?
I love pad thai, but I don't know whether my belly loves pad thai though.
What happens to your belly?
Puts on the kilos though, right? Pad thai.
Oh, okay.
Sugar, carbs.
Right. Yeah, it's probably not good in terms of calorie profile. I've got to say, probably 20 years ago, I loved a good pad thai, but it's waned. I'm not that into it. Pad see is probably the thing that I like. But I don't know if in Australia that's kind of where the trends have moved on, but it's still a staple item on a lot of people's kind of go-to.
I still love it. It's my go-to. If I'm having lunch by myself, chicken pad thai. Has to be chicken pad thai.
Why not seafood? No, it's just not your thing.
No, classic chicken pad thai.
So we're going to talk about wine pairings with pad thai, and before we get into that, I do want to talk about the Wineup's Fast 5 facts about pad thai.
Love it.
So these are interesting facts I wanted to share with you. First one is pad thai was created from a cooking competition, right? I want you to think about MasterChef, or in my mind, I was relating this to how Australia found Guy Sebastian, right? We wouldn't have known about Guy.
Shannon Knoll?
Or Shannon Knoll, Australian identities, if this Australian Idol competition wasn't held. And that's how they found pad thai. So pad thai, in the 1940s, the Prime Minister of Thailand was trying to establish this national identity for Thailand. He changed the name from Siam to Thailand and also held this competition with the intent of finding a national dish to represent the cuisine. And that's how we landed on pad thai. Number 2, which is why I brought these out, the Thai people actually don't eat pad thai or any dish with chopsticks, which was a surprise. I was like, what?
No way.
Fork and spoon is what they use. And And typically, even with the noodle dishes, that's the utensil of choice.
What about a spork?
Spork? What's spork? Spoon and fork.
Half spoon, half fork.
Yeah, probably working their way into that, but spoon and fork's the way to go. Really interesting. Number 3, it's actually influenced by Chinese and Southeast Asian cuisine. So you think about the tofu, you think about noodles, the dried shrimp that's used throughout it. It's kind of had this Chinese influence. But what makes it Thai is the sauces and the flavors. So that tamarind kind of flavor that comes through, that's essentially the Thai flavor that we're picking out of it. And so that leads me on to number 4. To differentiate it from a Chinese dish, they called it Kwai Tao Pad Thai. So Kwai Tao, what does that mean? That means stir-fried noodles. And so they added Pad Thai onto the end of it to go, this is a Thai dish. And then lastly, number 5, I'd heard this before and I wanted to verify it. It's actually considered an Australian national dish. Have you heard this?
I thought meat pie was.
Lots of people, there's lots of lists on there.
We had the meat pie episode. We said that meat pie was a national dish.
Lots of people are claiming there's different lists out there. 2014, one of the big takeaway places or delivery places had it listed as the most popular takeaway. And I'd heard it in news articles before, people claiming Pad Thai, Australia's national dish.
Well, it just keeps on changing. It used to be sweet and sour pork.
I think there's lots of different preferences. So that's a quick fast 5 on Pad Thai. Any of those surprise you?
Oh, national dish. Rest, probably not so much, but interesting.
Yeah.
Love your facts.
Lovely facts. And so let me just show this quickly on screen because I don't know if everyone's had a Pad Thai. I'm hoping you have, but if you haven't, you can see there it's a rice noodle based dish, lots of chicken sprouts on there, lots of good flavors. And on top of that, let's talk about this complex mix of flavors that they have. So they've got a bit of saltiness from the fish sauce. They've got the tamarind, which gives it a bit of sourness. There's some sugar in there that's giving it that sweetness. And then it's got this kind of fresh herbs around it. It's got some green onions or shallots on top of it. And then a bit of crunch in there. And on side of it is usually a lemon or a lime to give it a bit more citrus flavor. So it's kind of this mix of flavors.
But I find there's all these different variations of Pad Thai. Like the Pad Thai I like is not too overly sweet.
Yep.
But I love the crunch from the peanut. Sometimes have like this kind of like slithers of chili through it as well. Give a bit of spice.
Bit of heat to
But
it.
I love that kind of interplay between sweet and sour and spice.
Yeah.
And it's delicious.
I've got to say that stressed me out a bit when I was thinking about the wine pairing because there's so many bloody flavors going on. What's a good wine to choose? And so we've chosen 2 wines that we have in front of us. And we'll start off with the first one. So first one here is a 2023 number 4 Rieslingfreak from Eden Valley. And John Hughes, who's the owner and winemaker of Rieslingfreak, Riesling is his thing. He's got like 11 different variations of it.
Hence the name.
Really trying to show the different expressions, but he's trying to highlight the different styles in which you can make it. And he's getting it from different areas, Clare Valley, Eden Valley as an example. And so this is the Eden Valley expression. Have you had a chance to taste the Pad Thai and try it with there? What are you thinking?
So I'll talk about the Rieslingfreak first.
Yeah.
So I asked you before, where's it from? Is it Clare Valley? Is it Eden Valley? I thought it was Clare, but it's actually Eden. It's very crisp, fresh lemon pith, but also you steely as well. It has that kind of classic, very linear, very direct, lemon pithy, refreshing type of Riesling. Very iconic of that kind of area that I think is that type of Riesling. With the Pad Thai, it's a palate cleanser, I think, rather than something that lifts both. Like it's good, but not great.
Yeah, I just got some down there. I do think the reason I wanted to go with the Riesling was the acidity to kind of cleanse all of those different flavors. I did think the citrusy kind of lime flavors from a Riesling would match that squeeze of lemon all over the top and probably complement the tamarind.
I actually think the power in the Riesling could be too big.
Mm.
They just really just push and like washes out that whole pad thai feeling rather than being a bit more pared back and then complementing the flavors of the pad thai.
Yeah.
Like when you do like a pad thai, you don't go, oh, I want a whole lemon and kind of squeeze it across.
Mm.
It's more like a touch of lemon. But this is like lemon in buckets loads that kind of come through. It's like fresh lemonade.
Fresh lemonade. I do like, obviously it's got a clear identity around lime and lemon. There's a tiny bit of like minerality in there that's also working with it. I don't think it lifts it up. I don't think it clashes with it. It is a refresher. And interesting in corkscrews. What are you thinking?
Corkscrews, 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. Again, it's okay, but not great. But I do think the next one's better.
Yeah. And we're gonna get to the next one.
Corkscrews.
I think it's a 6. I think it could verge on a 7, to be honest. I don't think it clashes significantly in regards to that taste. But yeah, let's go with a 6. The next one we have sponsored from Josh from Vera Wines. And so this is an Alsace, and it's a Gewurtztraminer Domaine Rind Humbrecht. I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly. 2021. Right.
I think so.
And so did you want to talk through this one?
Yeah. So this one, Alsace, you don't know, it's border of French and German borders. This is a 2021, pale yellow color, fragrant floral nose, spice nutmeg, green pepper. Tasting it on itself, the notes that I put down is ginger, really big lychee and rose petal that comes through. Lychee and rose petal. I just thought like Malaysia tropical from that one. But it has this spice on it as well. With a bit of kind of bitterness coming through, but in a nice sense. It comes through the palate. It's more of a rounded wine compared to the Riesling, which is a bit more linear. And I was thinking, I put down, feels like Malaysia with those kind of like lychee drinks. And I thought exotic. Went with this kind of more exotic, kind of complex type of dish with a pad thai. And for me, at least, having them both together, I feel like it lifts both and harmonizes with both. Not one kind of pushes the other one aside. They're kind of in joint hands, kind of walking along.
I think we're going to have to disagree.
Yeah.
Agree to disagree on this one. First, I got to say, first time I had the Alsace Gewurztraminer, and every time I hear about it, people are like, "Oh yeah, it's lychee and there's a bit of spice." And the ones that I've had probably doesn't stand out as much in regards to this, but this really, the lychee stands out, and the spice kick right in the finish also stands out. Really quite distinct. I've never had one like that before. I think the challenge for me is I think the flavors are too powerful. I actually think it outshines the pad thai. In this instance. So, okay. Reverse of the roles. Corkscrews, what are you thinking?
I think 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. I think it works. I think it balances out. Maybe if you think about it, if it had a bit more kick and fish sauce for the pad thai, or if you had a bigger mouthful of pad thai, it would have worked better with the gewurz.
I just feel like the flavor profile is much more pronounced on that. But like they're kind of fighting for attention is what I was worried about.
I was thinking exotic with exotic, and that's why I think it kind of works for me.
Yeah, particularly in girlfriend types. Is that exotic with exotic? Is that?
Haven't had that kind of exotic with exotic though, but corkscrew though.
Corkscrew handy. So I prefer the pairing of the Riesling. So if I gave that a 6, I'd give this a 5. That's probably where I'd put it.
Cool.
And so that's us for today. I hope that's given you a bit of info around pad thai. 2 wines to try. Let us know in the comments below on what wine you'd recommend with a pad thai. And as we like to say here, drink more, try more, learn more.